Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be revisiting Old Gods of Asgard. Now, many of you will know that Old Gods of Asgard is basically just another name for Poets of the Fall. This is like a made-up band, as it were, that has appeared in many of Remedy's video games, such as... Well, I don't know if Old Gods of Asgard existed in Max Payne, but I know Poets of the Fall have provided songs for most of their games, including Max Payne, Control, obviously Alan Wake 1. I don't know if they did for Quantum Break. I've played Quantum Break, but I don't recall if there's any Poets of the Fall in there. But they've been brought in for a vast majority of Remedy's games, you know, and I've actually covered... I covered My Dark Disquiet, which was in Control, which is an absolutely fantastic track. I don't know if I actually covered War, which was from Alan Wake 1. But again, that was those were as Poets of the Fall. I did cover a Old Gods of Asgard track, which I think was called Control, from Control. I didn't cover anything from Alan Wake 1 by Old Gods of Asgard. I think there was a track called Lady of the Light, or something like that, that I recall, because that actually played a key role in the game. And by that logic, when they do songs as Old Gods of Asgard, it tends to lean more into the storyline of the game, such as, excuse me, Lady of the Light. I think that's what it's called. You know, that track in Alan Wake 1 actually plays an integral part to the plot, you know, because it actually tells you what you need to do. You need to find the Lady of the Light and find the witch's cabin key. You know, it was a clue in the song, and that's what you had to do in the game. So when it comes to their songs as Old Gods of Asgard, you know, I'm not expecting there's any sort of direct, maybe real world meaning. There might be, but it's more to do with the game and the plot and stuff. And I've been playing a lot of Alan Wake 2 recently, and obviously they released some new tracks as Old Gods of Asgard for the Alan Wake 2 game. So we're going to look today at Herald of Darkness, which is from the Alan Wake 2 game. I've not actually got that far in it, so I might actually be spoiling the game for myself here. But, you know, it's been a while since I looked at some Poets of the Fall, or Old Gods of Asgard, as it were. You know, I've covered them many, many times on this channel, but it's a new song and I wanted to hear it. So that's what we're going to do today. I've got some lyrics here, but like I said, there probably won't be that much to read into it. It'll probably be more to do with the storyline of the game, which I'm not 100% familiar with. All I know is we've got Saga on the outside, the FBI agent, and then we've got Alan, who seems to be stuck in the dark place, although at the point I've got to, you know, he's sort of washed out on the beach. And then there's is it Mr. Scratch, if I remember correctly, who's like Alan's dark half. So anyway, I'm just rambling now, so we'll jump into the song and see what we've got. Quite looking forward to this, because, you know, new Poets of the Fall / Old Gods of Asgard, and I enjoy their music, so we'll jump into this and see what we've got. So Herald of Darkness by the Old Gods of Asgard. Let's have a look.
Welcome. Our guest tonight is Alan Wake. This time he wanted to do something a little different. A deep dive into who he is as an artist and as a man. Where he comes from, where he draws his inspiration, what demons he wrestles with in the dark hours of the night. Together with our house band, the divine Old Gods of Asgard, we have created something very special. The song is called Herald of Darkness, but I like to call this next segment the story of the journey of Alan Wake, the musical. We just do what we always do. We'll chat, but instead of talking, we'll sing it.
From what I've gathered, you grew up nice and sheltered with mama's pretty stories and your own made-up fury. And mama gave me a magic clicker. Well, yes, I think it's true and fair to say. Come on in and listen, lost words you've been missing. Now the fire you're bearing, the eye of the darkness, your light.
the hell?
Diving deep to the surface. And all your stories of crime and chilling thrillers of hard-boiled killers became bestsellers. It was all too much, I had to get away. The story's the end, all a piece of true fiction. They mean endless in the face of creation. But there is more to it than meets the eye. I never meant for it to ruin my life that way. Would you say you lived a jaded lie? Dark shades could never save the day. So sad, but true. Fun in the nightmares, torch and a light switch, a gift or a curse, a reality made of dreams. Show me the champion of light. I'll show you the herald of darkness. Lost in the never-ending night. Diving deep to the surface. He could write a new story like Tom's ain't before him, and maybe they'd be happy once again. Just one shot, one more chance for him to save their marriage away from the city, a romantic getaway. Still he's a torchbearer, and he couldn't be much clearer. A war needs its warrior, true and right. The darkness such a dark place. Am I trapped in here? Is this real? I cannot remember. There was a manuscript, it held a key. A vicious cycle I must not surrender to. Echo seems to speak out again and again until I figure it out to bring this song to its end.
What an utterly ridiculous piece of music that was. But it was brilliant, you know. It's not at all what I expected from it either. I mean, obviously, you know, the song's done kind of in the way of a chat show, you know, because you've got the host there talking to Alan Wake and the musical guest being Old Gods of Asgard. And I like the way it's done. I love the way it's done. It's really, really quite funny and incredibly, incredibly silly. I mean, obviously, you had Alan Wake in there, the actual actor that played Alan Wake, in both of the games. He also appeared in the music video for War from the first Alan Wake. I don't know about the chat show host, but then you had Sam Lake, who provided the face for Max Payne, but he's also the, I believe he's the head of Remedy, you know, he runs Remedy, he creates the games, you know, and he also plays Alex Casey, who is the FBI agent in Alan Wake 2, who also coincidentally happens to share a name with the character from Alan Wake's books. So, you know, there's a lot to take in that video. It's quite a lot. And from what I understand from what I had from the lyrics, it hasn't really spoiled anything from the new game. It's more sort of recapping. It seems to be recapping the old game. The first game. So, yeah. But it was a great piece of music. Like I say, I like the way it was performed, you know, with the sort of conversational sort of thing going on between the chat show host and Alan Wake. And, you know, Old Gods of Asgard / Poets of the Fall filling in the chorus, as it were. And then, of course, a whole bunch of silly dancing, and then a random, weird, almost jazz-like section right at the end, just to, you know, why the hell not? What a great piece of music. It was good fun. It was good fun. Very, very silly in the video. And that's another thing I like about Poets of the Fall. You know, they can create some, like, emotionally crushing pieces of music, but they also don't take themselves too seriously. You know, they know how to have fun and be silly, you know. So they're a great band all round because, you know, they don't take themselves too seriously, but they can produce some really serious emotional music at the same time. I mean, like the actual track War, you know, it's quite a powerful and emotional song and quite a deep song. This one, a little more on the silly side. So, like I said, the song itself seems to be recapping the events from the first game. If no one's played the first game, then where the hell have you been? What are you doing? You know, it's been out for 13 years? Something like that. You know, it's taken them 13 years to make the sequel. And I actually wonder if they did that on purpose. You know, did they wait so long to make the sequel on purpose to lend weight to the fact that Alan Wake's been missing? Because obviously at the end of the first game, he ends up stuck in the dark place, having to write the book to fight against the woman who's, like, creating all this shadow shit around Bright Falls. Did they on purposefully leave it for 13 years. Was that their intention all along? I don't know. But either way, from what I've played of it so far, it's still a very good game. Right, anyway, it goes. From what I've gathered, you grew up nice and sheltered with Mum's pretty stories and your own made-up furies. And, you know, this is the talk show host. So it's, you know, basically saying, you know, from what I understand, you grew up in a fairly nice home, you know. Your mother looked after you, told you pretty stories, and your own made-up furies. So he had some stories that he made up, and, you know, angers and issues. He says, and Mama gave me a magic clicker. Well, yes, I think that's true and fair to say. So the magic clicker actually plays an integral part in the first game, although you don't get it until like right at the very end of the game, and you know you never actually use it per se. You know, it's used sort of in a cutscene, and that's about it. But it's an important part of the storyline too, because he sort of presses it, and it goes from nighttime to daytime outside, basically. But that doesn't last very long. Anyway, so it says, coming in and listen, lost words you've been missing, of the fire you're bearing, the eye of darkness, your light. And this is where the band come in. So you were drawn to stories early on. My dreams would light up my imagination. And you had nightmares night and day. Yeah, but with the clicker I chased those frights away. Who knew? So true. So, you know, the clicker that his mother gave him when he was a kid, it was supposed to be kind of like a security blanket, as it were, you know. So if when he was young, if he was having bad dreams or nightmares, or he was scared of the dark, he just pressed a button and that sort of made it go away in a sort of, well, I'm assuming the attention was supposed to be in a sort of placebo kind of way, you know, to try and make him feel better. But I can't actually remember in the first game whether she knew that it had magical properties or not, because, you know, the game's been out for 13 years. But yeah. So here's a clue of hope to remember. Visions, they come true, obeying the light switch too. Then it goes into that chorus. Show me the champion of light, I'll show you the herald of darkness. Lost in a never-ending night, diving deep to the surface. So, whether or not Alan Wake could be called a champion of light, I don't know, because the darkness is sort of coming from him, because it's coming from the story that he wrote, although he's writing that story under the influence of the weird old woman who's sort of forcing him to write the story. But he still consciously knows that he's writing a bad story, and he wrote him a way out. Anyway, so the Herald of Darkness, I suppose that could also, Alan Wake could be considered the Herald of Darkness, but then again, so could the old woman that made him write the story. And all your stories of crime and chilling thrillers of hard-boiled killers became bestsellers. It was all too much. I had to get away. So again, this is like the talk show host saying, you know, all your stories and crime thrillers, you know, they became bestsellers. You know, you wrote some excellent books. You know, you had a huge fan base. And Alan's saying, yeah, it was all too much. I needed to get away. Which, if I remember correctly, is one of the reasons why he went to Bright Falls in the first game anyway. I think he had writer's block, and I think it was because he was overwhelmed with how much was expected of him. You know, everybody was expecting the next best thing from him, and it was getting too much for him, and he just couldn't write anymore. You know, he was stressing out. So him and his wife, Alice, I want to say Alice, you know, they went to Bright Falls, and she was like, you know, it's nice to get away and all that. And then, you know, once they got to their little cabin, which apparently didn't really exist, she was like, oh, by the way, there's a typewriter in there so you can do some writing while you're here. And he's like, bitch, we were supposed to be here for a holiday so I could get away from it, not so I could sit here and do more writing. You know, the story's the end all, a piece of true fiction, made meaningless in the face of creation. But there is more to it than meets the eye. I never meant for it to ruin my life that way. So there's a line that a piece of true fiction, you know, it was a fiction story that actually came to life because of the properties of Bright Falls. And he's like, I never meant for it to ruin my life that way. I never meant for my piece of work to actually become something real and put me in such a horrible place. Because, like I said, at the end of the first game, he ends up trapped in the dark place. I'm just going to call it the dark place. I can't remember if that's actually what it's called. But yeah. Would you say you lived a jaded lie? Dark shades could never save the day. So sad, so true. So, would you say you lived a jaded lie? Jaded is like fed up, tired, just bleh, just don't care anymore. Fighting the nightmares, a torch and a light switch, a gift or a curse, a reality made of dreams. Again, to fight off the nightmares, he had to use a torch, to weaken them, and then he could dispatch them. And then, of course, the light switch, because light was the enemy of, these shadow figures, or the Taken. Yeah, Taken. And then it goes back into that chorus. Show me the champion of light, I'll show you the herald of darkness. Lost in a never-ending night, diving deep to the surface. He could write a new story like Tom Zane before him, and maybe they'd be happy once again. Just one shot, one more chance for him to save their marriage. Away from the city, a romantic getaway. Now, in the first, if I remember correctly, Tom Zane was the first person, the first writer that went to Bright Falls, and his writing is what set off the old lady that sort of is getting Alan to write the story in the first game. Tom Zane was kind of like a prequel, as it were. And he was a similar sort of writer to Alan Wake, if I remember correctly. Like I said, it's been a while. And I think he went there to sort of, it says here, just one shot, one more chance for him to save their marriage. Away from the city, a romantic getaway. So again, similar to Alan Wake, but not exactly the same, because Alan wasn't there to save his marriage. He was there because, he was having a bad time, but I think Zane went there to save his marriage, to have a romantic getaway in this cabin on Cauldron Lake, which apparently doesn't exist. So yeah, there was a big comparison between Zane and Alan. Still he's the torchbearer, and it couldn't be clearer. A war needs its warrior, true and right. But the darkness within him held her hostage. He had seen her drowning, would save her from the darkness of the lake. Would have saved. Anyway, so Alan is a torchbearer. It couldn't be much clearer. He's the one to fight away the darkness. A war needs its warrior, true and right. Alan Wake is essentially the warrior. The darkness within him held her hostage. So, the story that he's writing is what kidnapped Alice and took her to the dark place. That's what... It was the darkness within him that took her away. And if I remember correctly, Alice was terrified of the dark. And there was backstory behind that, and I can't remember what it was. But, at the beginning of the game, Alan's out in the garden fixing a fuse, I want to say. Then he hears Alice scream. He runs into the house and goes through to the back and sees, the fence broken, and then he sees her in the water and drowning, so he dives in after her. He would save her from the darkness of the lake. He had seen her drowning, would save her from the darkness of the lake. So, that was his intention. Then it goes back into that chorus. Show me the champion of light, I'll show you the herald of darkness, lost in a never-ending night, diving deep to the surface. Such a dark place. Am I trapped in here? Is this real? I cannot remember. There was a manuscript. It had a key. It held a key. A vicious cycle I must not surrender to. This is when it got weird and sort of jazzy towards the end, and Alan Wake was sort of doing freestyling. Echo scenes to seek out again and again until I figure it out to bring this song to its end. I quite like that. So this is when he was... I believe this is right when he... At the end of the game, when he was in the dark place, he goes, it's such a dark place, am I trapped in here? Because he had to sit in the dark place to write the end of the novel from the first game, to, save Alice, and to beat this old woman that had forced him to write this in the first place. You know, he's like, am I trapped here? Is this real? I can't remember. You know, it seems like he's finding it difficult to distinguish between what's real and what was written in his book, because, you know, both have sort of merged into one. There was a manuscript, it held a key, and, you know, throughout the game you had to pick up pages of the manuscript, you know, of the book to figure out what was happening. And I think depending on how many pages you got, depended on how the game ended. I can't be sure. I might be wrong there. And then it goes, you know, Echo scenes to seek out again and again. So, you know, it's sort of repeats, you know, things are repeating again, until, you know, it's going to happen again and again and again until I figure out how to, and it says figure out to bring this song to an end. So, you know, this is just going to carry on and on and on until I figure out how to stop it. And I like how it says to bring this song to its end, you know, and then it goes into that chorus, show me the champion of light, I'll show you the herald of darkness, lost in a never-ending night, diving deep to the surface. So there you go. So like I said, it's sort of recapping the events from the first game. It's not really spoiling anything from the new game, as far as I can tell, unless the new game basically relives the first game. But yeah, you know, I like the song. I think it's brilliant. I think it was cleverly done. It had its really silly moments. The video was really good fun. And, you know, it's always good to hear Poets of the Fall / Old Gods of Asgard music. You know, I'm a big fan. You know, I've mentioned this several times, and like I said, I've covered them many, many times on this channel. I really need to carry on playing Alan Wake 2, because I haven't really gotten that far in the game. I mean, I only got it like a day or two ago. I know I've had a lot going on, so I've not had a chance to get it. I mean, I've just got to the point where Saga found Alan on the beach. You know, and that's not very far in the game at all. Well, especially if the first game's anything to go by, because it was a long game. But yeah. Fun piece of music. I wanted to listen to it. Figured I might as well do it here. So, yeah, I don't know what else I can say on that. So I'll leave that as it is. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like or a subscribe, or both, you know. If you're not already, you know, it really, really would help me out. It'd really help the channel out. It'd be immensely helpful, because, you know, I'm putting out all these videos, and, you know, people aren't liking and subscribing, and they're just sort of getting lost in the algorithm and not getting suggested to anybody, and that's kind of you know, it's disheartening, because, you know, I've been doing this for about 5 years, and I put a lot of effort into them, and, you know, people just aren't watching them, and it's kind of depressing, really. But yeah, if you could give it a like and subscribe, you know, it doesn't cost you anything. It takes a fraction of a second, and it really, really would help me out. But other than that, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Show me the champion of light. I'll show you the